I first want to recognize you, Mr. Slater. Thank you for being here. My heart goes out to you for your loss, and I appreciate your courage in showing up and trying to make a difference on this. I want to focus my questions on Representative Pressley's memo that she introduced. I find it, frankly, quite shocking. As I understand the situation, by 1982, we understood the risks of some of the talcum powder and the link to cancer-causing activity. And yet, Representative Pressley has a memo 10 years later from 1992 that Johnson & Johnson is intentionally trying to sell more of this product to African Americans and the Hispanic American community. Dr. McTiernan, do you think Johnson & Johnson acted in deliberate disregard for the risks? And how would you characterize that memo where they are deliberately selling a product to African Americans and Hispanics knowing some of these risks?
I haven't seen the memo, but I do agree that it's questionable if there's an attempt to get people to use these products more, if there's any amount of risk. This isn't a product, talcum powder products in the genital area is not required for health. It's not like a medication where you look at the benefit and risk of something and tell the person this is the benefit, this is the risk. We don't have that situation here. We have something that's not necessary for health, and so it was being marketed for other reasons. It concerns me that there wouldn't be regulation that could oversee something like this. If there are risks to a product, we would like to be able to tell people what the risks are, and then realizing that for them benefit may just be some other reason other than a health benefit.
Let me ask this, which any of the panelists can answer. Do you think Johnson & Johnson would have acted differently if we were talking about Caucasians and not African Americans or the Hispanic community?
Could you repeat the question?
Sir, the memo that Representative Pressley suggests is that Johnson & Johnson had a deliberate strategy to market this product to the African American community and to the Hispanic community, knowing, one can only assume they knew because 10 years earlier there was a study linking this product to cancer.
They did.
Do you think people there may have acted differently if the risk was to the Caucasian, to the white community, as opposed to the African American and Hispanic community? Do you think they were more indifferent to some of the suffering because it was minority communities?
Growing up in a, let's say, a less than perfect scenario where we didn't grow up with a lot of money, poverty levels, tough life, but we made do with what we had. There were not a lot of resources that were available for us to learn more about different products. We did what other generations did. Products that was used by forefathers, great-grandmothers, great-great-grandmothers, that was the way of life. Now, I've seen memos myself where J&J, Johnson & Johnson, targeted those minorities, and personally, I felt like they targeted because of lack of education, that those group of people were easy targets. They used the product mostly, and they specifically target those people, knowing the harm that they were causing with their product, and they valued that over human life with profit. So yes, I think they would have treated Caucasian differently because of the money that they were making targeting minorities.
I just want to say for the record, what you said is absolutely disgusting if Johnson & Johnson did that, targeting people who didn't have an education. I mean,
yes, sir.
It's appalling. Mr. Farber, do you have any comments?
I would just add that all of the companies that used talc were well aware of the presence or the potential presence of asbestos in talc going back to the 1970s. It was never a secret that talc could co-mineralize with asbestos. Ultimately, the companies were successful in persuading FDA to allow them to rely on a method of testing that could not rule out the presence of asbestos in talc. So, and I think it's probably critical to remember that when given the chance to require a warning, FDA declined to do so twice, even though it has required warnings on products that arguably pose less risk to consumers than products that would contain asbestos.